Hey, everybody. This is Philip Lee returning with another episode of Civil War Chat. Today's topic is diversity. And before we begin, just want to let you know that if you click on the subscribe button below, you can subscribe to this show, and also the notification bell in the upper right to be notified when the next episode is released. And today is Friday, the 8th of October. And so I'll pull up my notes and we'll begin my show on diversity. Many of those who promote diversity, equity, and inclusion, sometimes called DEI, also advocate for the removal of Confederate monuments and the disparagement of Confederate history. For some of us, it seems like diversity, equity, and inclusion as a concept rushed into the public consciousness abruptly. Now, we've been unaware of how these terms originated and their meaning in a legal context. And today's article focuses on diversity of the three. Now, the story of diversity begins in 1978, when the Supreme Court ruled on the case of Bakke versus the University of California. Allan Bakke was an applicant to the Davis campus medical school who had been denied acceptance because minority affirmative action applicants with lower credentials took up the last available spots. Bakke sued, claiming that the school had unconstitutionally discriminated based upon race. Although Bakke won his Justice William Powell, although Bakke won his case, Justice William Powell freelanced an opinion that put diversity as a concept on the map. He wrote that the university could not offer racial preferences to some applicants as a way to right historical wrongs, but if the university had stated that its racial preferences were intended to achieve educational benefits, such as diversity, he, Powell, might have reached a different conclusion. Although no other justice agreed with Powell on this point, the Academy hoped to stretch the nuance to justify racial preferences in college admissions. That put the concept of diversity into play. By the 1980s, campus offices of affirmative actions were starting to be renamed diversity offices. They could argue that Black students would enhance the value of education for whites by offering, quote, Black viewpoints, close quote. Unfortunately, this had the effect of stereotyping Blacks as a group, as opposed to seeing them as individuals. As a result, Black viewpoints were collapsed into a collective claim of perpetual victimhood that requires compensation from those who are not Black. African-American elites, however, were not the first to collectively identify themselves as victims of oppressor groups whose members merely have different immutable characteristics, such as skin color. Feminists, for example, still declare women to be victims of a mythical patriarchy, even though they represent almost 60% of college students. Under the diversity banner, feminists demand special privileges for women in male-dominated programs such as engineering. They also demand preferences in hiring and promotion to compensate for past wrongs, hiring and promotion on campus in terms of professors. Not only do feminists exaggerate such past wrongs, they ignore female advantages, such as a near monopoly on gender-based campus assistance programs, longer lifespans, safer working conditions, and family court preferences, particularly involving custody. Thus, in combination, Blacks and women comprise the base of the Democrat Party, which panders to victimhood. Justice Powell's 1978 Bakke interpretation, his 1978 Bakke interpretation, stood alone until the court ruled on a similar 2003 complaint by Barbara Grutter against Lee Bollinger. Grutter was denied acceptance at the University of Michigan Law School, even though her academic credentials were better than students admitted under the school's affirmative action. Her complaint against university president Bollinger was much like that of Bakke's against the University of California. She won in a lower court, but the case went all the way to the Supreme Court, where she lost in a 5-4 decision. When Justice Sandra Day O'Connor wrote that majority opinion, she gave the kiss of legitimacy to Powell's 25-year-old diversity concept. Grutter versus Bollinger permits universities to apply racial preferences if they dress the preferences in suitable camouflage, such as the pursuit of diversity. But diversity undermines liberty because it takes away our freedom as individuals, including Black individuals, to decide who we are. It instead authorizes a racial, gender, or ethnic group to speak for us, thereby obstructing our right of free expression. It also undermines equality because it substitutes the individual's equality under the law for a pseudo-equality of group rights. It turns superficial status into power by permitting multiple victim groups to unite. From this soil of ever-expanding victim alliances grows resentment, demands for restitution, and the Democrat Party. In short, diversity is a racial and gender spoil system exploited by the Democrat Party. In 1996, California voters tried to halt this nonsense. Specifically, they passed Proposition 209 that outlawed preferences, but academics circumvented voter intent with contrived evasions. UCLA, for example, started admitting all students in the top 4% of their school class, but the academic capabilities of that top tier varied from school to school, depending upon the racial composition of its students. 30% of Blacks and Hispanics with an A average, for example, had mediocre SAT scores of 500 or lower. Under a comprehensive review concept that included diversity in 2002, Berkeley admitted almost 400 Black students because they had started this process of including diversity in the process of admitting students. So they admitted almost 400 Black students with SAT scores under 1,000. But they rejected over 3,000 other applicants with scores of over 1,400. These other 3,000 had 400 more SAT points than the 400 Black students that were admitted, but the 3,000 were not given acceptance. They could not go to school at Berkeley. Now, this elite evasion of Proposition 209 shows that when racial preferences are outlawed, only outlaws will have racial preferences. But unfortunately, these outlaws are never punished. In short, diversity is an all-purpose, quote, I want free stuff, close quote, word, especially useful to women and ethnic minorities. Okay, so that's what I wanted to say. And I'd like to now share my screen to show you this. This is my book, The Confederacy at Flood Tide. And I think you'll like it. I recommend that you get it because it covers the period from June 1862 to December 1862, when the Confederacy came closest to winning its independence. And I look at this not only from the point of view of the battles that happened, but also the diplomacy, the politics, and the espionage. And I look at the developments in each of the theaters, including the Eastern Theater, the Western Theater, and the Trans-Mississippi. So if you'd like to get that book, The Confederacy at Flood Tide, it is available at Amazon and Barnes & Noble and other fine bookstores. But if you want to get an autographed copy, you can get it from me. Just email me, Phil, Phil _ Leigh, LEIGH at me.com. Okay, that's our show for today, and thanks for watching.